Okay, what we're doing here today is we're inoculating some logs with some shiitake mushroom spore to grow some shiitake mushrooms. I've seen in other videos where people go at length with wire brushes and knock off all this moss and lichen. I've seen people use a drill with a drill stop or use a drill with tape around there to mark how deep the things are going. All of which I believe is an incredible waste of time. Um, what I would do is get one of these angle grinders and one of these conversion bits, and then the bit here from Field and Forest product. You'll see how fast this goes through and how fast I can inoculate a log. This is a high-speed bit, and it's got a built-in stop, so you're just bam, 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 plugging up and down the log. I think if you save time doing each log, you can get a lot more logs done and increase your production that way. I've never worried about the moss and lichen, and it's never affected any of my mushroom logs producing. I've only had a couple of mushroom logs fail. I don't know why they failed, and because I had so many successful with the moss and lichen on there, I don't think it had anything to do with it. So today you're going to watch me do some of the drilling, and I've got my son here, Bucky. We're going to be plugging the logs, and then later we'll cover the holes with a food grade wax. I've tried a crock pot before with a chip brush. I wasted a lot of wax doing that. I've also, and it never really gets hot enough, especially a lot of times when you do this, it's cold outside, so you're fighting that as well. I bought an expensive tool from Field and Forest product. It was a couple $100, the Akuta Waxer, and I'm using a deep fryer now, which I can control the temperature at a higher temperature, and then you get that bubbling when you put that wax on there, which is what you want. So just sit back and watch. I'll show you how fast this gets done. So they say, and I hate to say that because whenever anybody tells me they say, it's they who. I think Field and Forest Products has a lot of information to offer on this process. You can go on their website, you can order some of the tools. You can pick these angle grinders up off from your local building supply store. I'm going to build a bank driller for these so I can process logs even faster, and I think I paid $12 a piece for the angle grinders. So on Field and Forest website, it'll show you acceptable logs. I use ironwood logs because I'm in a forestry program in Wisconsin, and these are the logs that the DNR actually wants us to cut out so that we can get more hardwood growth in the thing. And they work great for shiitake logs, even though you'll look on the website and see the preferred logs are oak logs. I went there, took a class there, and they also talked about the ironwood log as being the log of choice because of how readily available they are because of good sound forestry practices. The holes, they say to drill, and I hate this part too, is they say a diamond pattern. What you're doing is basically doing offset rows, and they want the holes to be 4 inches apart either way. So if you want the log, because the grain in the log runs this way, if you want to increase your chances of having a good spawn run, or mycelium being completely filled with mycelium, the key is to not increase the holes down the length of the log, but to increase or decrease the distance between the rows, because the mycelium will run up and down the grain. We're gonna get to it here. I'll show you another facet of doing this, where we pound in the plugs. I like the plugs because they seem a lot cleaner, seems a lot faster. I made this table here after doing this a couple of years. One, you can roll the log on the rollers, then you could roll the log down, and you can have, ideally you would have 4 people running this table, 1 person drilling, 2 people doing the plugs, and then 1 person waxing and stacking at the end. And you could get quite a few logs done in a short amount of time. Later in another video, we'll talk about actual marketing of the shiitakes and what you can do to sell them, or if you just want to do them for yourself for your own good. It's said that they say, once again, that the circumference or diameter of the log, if you have a 4-inch log, it'll last 4 years. If you have a 6-inch log, it'll last 6 years. I will tell you that if you get too big a log, and this is right at the edge of my scale of comfort. I mean, I'm a big guy, I can handle lifting a lot of weight, but who wants to move around a couple hundred of these logs when it comes to fruiting and forest fruiting and stuff like that? So I'm probably better off doing more logs of a lesser diameter than one this big. Putting in the wooden dowels here. You'll get it, it'll have like white mold, mycelium, whatever on there, and they're just wooden dowels that you buy in a hardware store that are impregnated with the mycelium. Usually I give it 2 good taps. This hammer's a little bigger, one to start it and the second one to drive it home. You'll see how fast this process goes. And the dowels don't cost that much money, so if you drop one, just let it go. A lot of times if there's an occlusion on the wood, you know, like here there was a branch coming off, so I actually drilled a hole there because later I'll come in and I'll wax over it. So I'll wax over the inclusion on the wood to help protect the log for its production. A lot of people they'll tell you that they won't buy the logs if the bark is damaged. No, I do all the cutting myself, so I'm figured out ways to fix them as I'm going through. Oh my word. Some much better hammers from Snap-on Tools. When you do set up an assembly line and have several people working on it, I would say that one guy does half the log on that side of the table, one guy does half the log on this side of the table, and then at the end of the table, I got my table set up on the wrong angle, but because of the way the property is and my cheap sawhorses are, but the guy who covers the holes with wax, I think if he finds an empty hole that wasn't plugged, he should have enough time to plug that hole and continue wax. It does happen. You'll find with most of my videos that I'm not an expert at anything, but it's my journey into homesteading and self-sufficiency. If you want to have a successful homestead, you're going to have to learn how to have an alternative source of income. And hopefully it's homestead based, whether it's growing organic produce or in this case organic shiitake mushrooms. People do different things, goats, whatever, chickens, whatever. Someday I'll probably have chickens, and trust me, I am no expert on that subject whatsoever, but, hopefully it'll just be there to help me out. Getting the farm all set up and this and that. I'll do some organic produce along with this. Now, a lot of people grow shiitake mushrooms on substrate, which is a lot of different items. I personally think that this is the way the shiitake mushroom was meant to grow, is on logs, because it's any mushroom that grows on a log is considered medicinal. So why would you substitute that for some bark or some whatever other type of medium that you can, when you could use these logs and have the highest quality product out there? Plus, if you look at some shiitake, store-bought shiitakes, and then I'll show you fruiting logs, as I start to fruit logs, and you'll see the difference between the substrate store-bought shiitakes and then the shiitakes that are actually log growing. So I think that the way the mushroom breaks down the lignins in the wood, I think there's a completely different set of nutrition that the mushroom gets from actual wood versus whatever else people decide they think they can make the mushroom grow on. That's why you'll see the difference in fullness and color on a store-bought shiitake versus a log-grown shiitake. bought a deep fryer and rum and sail, you know, that way I can control the temperature better. This Akuta waxer sure does work nice. It's heavy metal, which carries the temperature of the wax to the log, and it has a little foam thing at the end that actually takes care of the mushroom. The first year I did it with foam brushes, made a mess, used a lot of wax, used beeswax as well. Interesting story about using beeswax the first year was that when they had logs out in the woods, you know, so they would have shade and they would retain the moisture, and you know, it's just a lot moisture out in the, there's a lot more moisture out in the woods. Bees came and stole all the wax, and at first I thought it was because they were lazy and they wanted to get the wax versus making their own. But in retrospect, after watching a lot of videos on bees and mushrooms, I think the bees were out after the mycelium, because I think that they're using the mycelium as medicine. You know, like one of the great philosophers said, "You let thy food be thy medicine." Well, I think that that's what potentially keeps a lot of hive collapse disorder from happening, is that they're out in the woods scavenging for mycelium as well. Anyway, the next year I used a chip brush, made a mess, used a bunch of wax, and then I finally went to this Akuta waxer, and I don't use as much wax, and it has a much nice covering on the hole itself and the plug itself. So this really works out well. There's certain things I would invest money on, and there's certain things I wouldn't. Like a $3 deep fryer is well worth it. You know, I think the Akuta waxer at $200 is well worth it too, because you're going to save the money in a couple of years on wax, and then of course it speeds up the process. And I would suggest that you do the angle grinder as well with the high-speed bit, because that's what's going to save you time and allow you to do more logs. So rather than worrying about a log or two failing because you didn't scrape it or it had a big thing, you know, the key is to spend that time doing a lot more logs. You can see here we got a pile here. I'm doing several hundred logs this year. I hope next year to have some some different equipment to get in and out of the woods with the logs, because in the wintertime, it's where my property is. It's hard to get it to the logs in the wintertime. And then also I hope to have an indoor spot so I could do more logs throughout the whole course of the winter, and do several thousand logs, and eventually sell logs at the farmer's market along with the mushrooms. But long term, it's definitely going to sell the mushrooms. Plug gives it a nice wax coating. If there's any damage on the log, like I said before, I usually drill a hole there, so I'm doing two things at once. I'm putting a plug in, and I'm fixing the hole with the wax.